Page 299. For the sin we committed against you through evading and avoiding, because we could not face the truth. For our flight into hypocrisy and deception, because we did not dare to speak it. For the facts we dissembled, and all we gloss over, for the excuses we made. For feeding our bodies and starving our souls. For interfering with the souls of others and neglecting their needs. For shifting our responsibilities for reproaches and recriminations. For our foolishness, our folly, and false standards. For seeing these things only in others, never in ourselves. For our complacency, which blinds us, and our self-righteousness, which lessens us. For calculating kindness and measuring out pity. For charity that is cold, and prayers without feeling. For withholding our love. For the appeals that we ignored and the people whom we refused. For the affection which died, and our lives that became bitter. For the visions which faded, the ideals we neglected, and the opportunities we lost. For the fear of change and renewal, and our unbelief. For saying prayers aloud but refusing to listen. For being our own worst enemy. Page 300. Responsively. For these sins, our God, we ask forgiveness. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, ba'ones u'b'ratzon, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'yodim u'v'lo yodim. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'ivli da'at, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'ritzat raglayim lahara. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'chozek yad, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'zilzul horim morim. Page 302. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'yetzer hara, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'kashiyut oref. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'chachash u'v'chazav, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'kalut rosh. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'siach siftotenu, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'tzarut ayin. V'al kulam al slichot, slach lanu, machal lanu, kaper lanu. Page 304. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'galui u'basater, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'sinat hinam. Al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'frihat ol, v'al chet shechatanu lefenecha, b'ma'achal u'b'mishteh. chet shechatanu lefanecha b'gilui arayot, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'imutz halev. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'neshech u'v'marbit, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'masa u'v'matam. Page 306. V'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'hirhur halev, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'richilut. V'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chapat shochad, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chilul Hashem. Val kulam elohas lichot, slach lanu, machal lanu, kaper lanu. Pray silently. Page 310.
Amen.
Page 312. I'd like to call forward Barbara Lefkowitz and Alyssa Petotsky to please lead us in prayer.
Throughout the year, regard yourself as equally balanced between merit and sin. With one act, you can tip the balance for yourself and for the world. Every good deed makes a difference. And so it is written, a righteous person is the foundation of the world. For one who does good tips the balance of the scales and can save the world.
Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught, always look for the good in yourself. And remember, joy is not incidental to your spiritual quest. It is vital. For so it is written, you will go out through joy and be led forth in peace. Focus on the good in yourself. Take joy in what is good, and you will be led forth from inner darkness.
Page 316. Shema Kolenu, hear our call, hear our voice. We sing together. Shana Tova. When we walked into the building on Friday night, September 21st, congregants saw that the Star of David out front had been defaced. Whatever the intentions of who did it, it was no good. We came together as a congregation, sang Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people lives, and continue to work on our protocols and the significant investment we are making in our security. We sang Am Yisrael Chai because that is a chant of defiance to the outside world, that no one can intimidate us, and it is also a message for inside our community that we should keep on living. We should live our Jewish lives fully and proudly. This was not an isolated occurrence. In the past few years, anti-Semitic incidents in the United States have spiked as different groups have become bolder in their hate crimes. So after we have addressed how many video cameras we need, how do we respond to anti-Semitism in the year 2019, 2020, or 5780? In his book, To Life, Rabbi Harold Kushner tells the story of an experiment that was done by a Jewish communal organization to better understand anti-Semitism. I will quote his summary. They went to a summer camp run by the YMCA movement, a camp for Christian teenagers. They administered a psychological test to measure attitudes towards Jews. They then divided the camp into 3 groups. Group 1 was given 6 hours of indoctrination about Jewish contributions to civilization, from the Bible to the greatest artists, athletes, and medical researchers who were Jewish. Group 2 was exposed to the history of Jewish suffering, how we had been persecuted over the centuries, culminating in the Holocaust, and how nobly we had borne those sufferings. Group 3 was not taught anything about Judaism. Instead, they spent their 6 hours talking about how foolish it was to generalize about people, to lump them in groups. At the end of the week, the same psychological test was administered to see if there had been any change in attitude. The first group, the ones who had learned about Jewish contributions to civilization, were unchanged. The group that learned about Jewish suffering showed a slight increase in anti-Semitic attitudes, perhaps because of resentment, belief that where there's smoke, there's fire. The group in which teenagers told each other that it was dumb to be prejudiced showed a significant decline in negative feelings about Jews. Conclusion: we reduce prejudice best by fostering a climate in which it is socially unacceptable to express prejudiced feelings about another group. A major challenge about confronting anti-Semitism is that there are various kinds of hatred of Jews in different contexts, and they require different kinds of responses. There are many kinds of anti-Semitism. There is religious anti-Semitism, both the Passion of the Christ kind, which blames us for killing Jesus, and Islamist types that believe in the protocols of the Elders of Zion. There is economic anti-Semitism, based on Jews and money. And there is racial anti-Semitism, including both the white nationalist and Farrakhan varieties. Anti-Semitism is a multi-headed hydra that can be found in many places, confounding logic. It is worse in Europe, and it is even worse in the Middle East. In America, there are leftist anti-Semites, some of whom are members of Congress, and there are right-wing anti-Semites, some of whom are members of Congress. And there have been for decades. The fact is, anti-Semitism can be found everywhere, and we should not assume the anti-Semites represent or define either political party. We Jews ourselves come with a variety of political opinions and affiliations, and we ought to object to the Jews being used as a partisan political football. And if you catch yourself buying into that kind of divisiveness, or pointing fingers along your personal partisan inclinations, please stop. It's not helpful or healthy. Do you know where there are no anti-Semites at all? The moon. We need to be especially alert to anti-Semitism posing as criticism of Israel. There are absolutely real reasons to be critical of Israel. There are real conflicts with deep feelings. You have heard me be critical of Israel from this bema, such as the treatment of women of the wall, certain kinds of settlement activity, or how the checkpoints are run. Any criticism I offer, however, is offered with love. As complicated as it may be, we can recognize that some criticism of Israel is so exclusive and obsessive that clearly anti-Semitism is going on. The smugness and glee that comes with the criticism is a tell. And we need to constantly educate others who depict anti-Semitic terrorist groups like Hamas as liberation movements, often out of ignorance. To quote a speaker from the AIPAC New England Convention, Rosa Parks would not give up her seat on the bus. She didn't blow the bus up. There are generally two approaches to hate. We can either condemn and marginalize, or we can engage and educate. Both tools are important and need to be used according to the situation. The first strategy of condemning and marginalizing is appropriate when we have to realize that there are some anti-Semites who are never going to change. We simply have to do whatever we can to limit their influence or make a public stand on principle. As far back as the Bible, we read the earliest forms of hatred of Jews from Pharaoh and Haman. Moses stood up to Pharaoh, and Esther stood up to Haman. Taking public stances against anti-Semitism is critical. Counter marches and gatherings, calling for anti-Semites to be censured or fired, demanding that anti-Semites not be given media time or space, and being aware of the anti-Semitic laws and practices in other countries are ways we condemn and marginalize. The second approach, however, is far more productive and crucial. Whenever and wherever we can, we have to engage and educate. This should be our default position. And taking a cue from the story with which I began, the only effective method of countering anti-Semitism is not to talk about Judaism, but to make it socially unacceptable to be prejudiced against anyone. This is because anti-Semitism ultimately isn't about Jews. Anti-Semitism is a form of projected hatred. The communists in the Soviet Union accused the Jews of being capitalists, and the McCarthyists in America accused the Jews of being communists. Whatever enemy a group imagines, they project a kind of other and put it on the Jewish people. Teaching about Judaism, either Jewish contributions to society or surviving persecution, doesn't address the problem. The hater sees some kind of internal fear that gets projected onto the Jewish person. A classic example, in the Bernard Malamud novel, The Fixer, a boy sees strawberry jam on Yaakov's table. He testifies that Yaakov took blood from a murder victim in order to make matzah, which is part of a kind of mythologies that Jews like to torture the host wafer and make Jesus bleed. The absurdity is that Yaakov doesn't believe in Jesus as the Messiah or the host. This is all in his accusers' heads and part of their religion that Yaakov doesn't even completely understand. The education that is needed, to use Rabbi Kushner's words, is to teach how wrong it is to lump people in groups. Using the Anti-Defamation League's curriculum, Facing History and Ourselves, and their Peer Leaders program is one component. The mission of Facing History and Ourselves is to use lessons of history to challenge teachers and their students to stand up to bigotry and hate. Let us also recognize that many people get seduced online. There are alt-right chat rooms and Islamist propaganda that the FBI is constantly monitoring. White nationalism is an especially potent force, a recurring cancer in America. Where we can all contribute in our everyday lives is to make it socially unacceptable to express prejudiced feelings about another group. Simply saying, that is not okay, is a clear way of stopping a conversation that you know is wrong. When it comes to standing up to hate, we are all in this together. We human beings need each other as allies. Never again doesn't just mean never again for the Jews. It means never again for anyone. That includes the propaganda and attitudes that led up to the Holocaust. Hate is a human problem. But there is a specifically Jewish thing you can do about anti-Semitism. The number one thing you can do to counter the effect of anti-Semitism on your life is to do something positive with your or your household's Jewish identity. Basing a Jewish identity on victimhood, reacting to anti-Semitism, is negative and frankly boring for kids. How many times do they have to hear about which people tried to kill us in which century? Instead, a positive Jewish identity should be built on Shabbat, holidays, personal and family milestones, and celebrating a way of life. The best thing you can do about responding to anti-Semitism is engage with the synagogue in any way that is comfortable for you. It is time to stand up, be counted, and be a living example of Torah. Will this make anti-Semitism go away? No. Will it make our households stronger and less affected by those who hate? Yes. In Temple Sinai's mission statement, we say, our mission is to inspire our members to integrate Jewish values and practice into their everyday lives. I thought it might be a good idea to name what we mean by Jewish values, but then I encountered a problem. Here is what we mean by Jewish values. Kavod, respect, shalom bayit, peace in the home, rodef shalom, peace in the world, b'tselem Elohim, all people are made in God's image, Kol Yisrael aravim zeh bazeh, Jewish communal responsibility, shmirat halashon, guarding the use of language, v'ahavte l'recha kamocha, loving your neighbor as yourself, ahavat ger, loving the stranger, al tifrosh min hasibur, solidarity, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor, emet, truth and integrity, hochiach tochiach, speaking out, bal tashchit, not to wantonly destroy, tsar ba'alei chayim, not to cause needless pain to any creature, bikor cholim, visiting the sick, mishpacha, family, moadei Adonai, sanctify the times of the year, limud, learning, tefillah, prayer, teshuva, repentance, tzedakah, righteous giving, mishpat, tzedek, mishpat, justice, simcha, joy, tikva, hope, rachamim, compassion, chen, grace, gemilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness, tikkun olam, the repair of the world, tikkun hanefesh, the repair of the soul, and echad, the oneness of God in all creation. That's too much to put into a mission statement. But that's what Judaism is really made of. We are supposed to embody those values as best we can. Let your life and your values be your answer. We respond to the negative with the positive. We can take a page from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s book when he said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Let us live celebratory, meaningful, and positive Jewish lives. That's what will ultimately endure. Our president, Cindy Crutchfield.
Shalom. Standing before you as president after 20 years is the last place I expected to be. I am both humbled and honored to be entrusted with this position again, and as president, to both convey greetings to everyone on behalf of the temple leadership, as well as to share a brief state of the congregation message, so to speak. These high holy days are periods of reflection and renewal, both for ourselves as individuals and together as a community. As I thought about what I might want to share with you this morning, I realized that my own personal path places me in a unique position in terms of my involvement in the community. In the past, as a leader of the congregation, I was, to quote Lin-Manuel Miranda, able to be in the room where it happens, participating in all aspects of temple life and decision-making. Then my personal career path led me to temple administration. And while serving as executive director, first at Temple Beth Elohim in Wellesley, and then at Temple Shalom in Newton, I became removed from the daily life here at Temple Sinai. It was only after my retirement that I was able to renew my participation here as an active member. This cycle of being actively involved, to being uninvolved, to being involved again, has given me the opportunity to stop and reflect on where we once were as a community, where we are now, and what might be needed as we move forward into the future. After I agreed to take this position, I quickly realized that I needed to learn as much as I could about what had been happening in the temple in the years that I had been away. So in addition to speaking with the clergy and the current leadership, I also began to attend some meetings, especially those of the board. So what have I learned? At my first board meeting, I heard about the results of a recent congregational survey done in conjunction with the URJ. As part of the presentation, we were shown a slide that had the words people used to describe Temple Sinai, displayed in one of those grids. You know, where the more times a word is mentioned, the larger and bolder it is on the grid. I was delighted to see that the words people used the most were welcoming, friendly, community, family. Temple Sinai has always tried to create a warm and welcoming environment, and it was exciting to see how well we were doing in this area. Not only have we had institutional growth in the area of being a warm and welcoming community, but we've shown growth in other areas as well. Our religious school programs, from kindergarten to high school, have also improved and grown. For example, our support of the needs of students and families with special needs so that all can participate in the experience of living, learning, and practicing Judaism has improved tremendously over the years. Our social justice program, which was not even in place during my first term, has given the community a vehicle for transforming Tikkun Olam from a theoretical construct to actual results, as it successfully has joined with others in the Commonwealth to make a difference in the lives of the neediest children in our state. Our conscious decision to shift our membership model from a dues-based to a pledge-based system has made it even easier for people to enter into our community and to contribute what they can. So I can say with certainty that the state of the congregation is good, it's solid, and well-positioned to move further into the 21st century. But that doesn't mean we still don't have room to grow and things to do. Due to the nature of the world we find ourselves in today, we must provide for the safety and security of our members. As Jill Goldberg-Arnold discussed in her Rosh Hashanah address, part of this year's annual appeal will be used to enhance both our internal and external security systems. And it is indeed up to us to ensure that we have the fiscal resources to do so. So please, give what you can to the 5780 annual appeal. Your contribution will make a difference. And also, let me please say Toda Rabah, thank you so very much to those of you who have already made your pledge. Our long-range planning committee has begun the task of asking what the future at Temple Sinai might look like. They're asking about everything, from technology to the shift in demographics to the needs of the building and membership, as they explore what steps we might take as we move ahead in the years to come. Our fundraising and development committee is looking at not only opportunities and needs for this year, but equally as important, what can be done to help ensure the fiscal health of the congregation in the years to come. And we shouldn't forget all the regular ongoing activities, programs, committees, and worship that are part of the rhythm and life of our community. far too numerous to cite here this morning. They are the lifeblood of what keeps us running each and every day. The task of moving forward, however, does not lie solely in the hands of the temple's leaders or its staff. From my experience in lay leadership and synagogue management, I know there are a multitude of tasks and to-do items that need to be done in order for a community to function. And we are blessed to have many of these done by a cadre of committed and dedicated volunteers. But you can never have too many volunteers. And I encourage anyone who has ever thought of doing so to email me at sinaisharonprez@gmail.com. In case you didn't get that, that's sinaisharon, PRES, @gmail.com. I'd be happy to either chat over the phone or meet in person to see where there could be a match between the skills of a member and the needs of the community. Your contribution of even 1 hour of your time could make a real difference. In closing, I'd like to offer the following prayer. May the year 5780 be one filled with continued renewal and growth for our members and our community as a whole. May we continue to join together in times of celebration or in times of sorrow. And just as our dreams of the past have come to fruition, may we also realize our dreams for the future as we work to becoming the very best Temple Sinai we can be. And let us all say, Amen. Announcements. Please join us for meditation and mindfulness at 2:30 this afternoon, led by congregant and licensed psychologist Stu Jacoby. Our afternoon service will begin at 4, with Yisker at about 5:15 and Neela at 6. Temple Sinai Social Justice Committee invites you to attend the October 24th Homelessness Awareness event, Myth Busting, the Truth About Family Homelessness and What You Can Do About It. Join advocates, legislators, and passionate citizens for a night of learning and taking action in the fight against family homelessness. Please join us on Sunday, November 3rd for the 2019 Vera Marshall Lecture, How and Why a Nice Deaf Jewish Boy Became a Rabbi. Rabbi Lee will weave together personal stories of deafness, rock and roll, and a deep engagement with a profound and powerful Jewish journey. The program will be ASL interpreted. Also, please save the date for our November 17th community celebration and installation of Cantor, Becky, Khitrik. All are welcome at this fun and musical event. Thank you to Beth Fine Nelson and Nick Burka for leading our youth program this morning, and to Scott Brody for making Everwood Day Camp available for Camp Hi-Ho. Thank you to the office and custodial staff and the many volunteers that had a part in making our High Holy Day services possible. Thank you to Rabbi Meszler and Cantor Khitrik, and to our choir led by Carol Martone and accompanist Valerie Becker. Special thanks to our ritual co-chairs Jay Ritt and Jeff Schnipper and the entire ritual committee. Please remember to return your prayer books to the carts as you leave the sanctuary. And finally, I wish each and every one of you a happy and healthy New Year and a very meaningful fast.
Thank you. Page 318, our closing song.
I
Tamar Tov, may you be sealed for goodness. Shana Tova.